everyone, today we have just a very short section of notes to learn about lesson 5.3, evolutionary classification. So there's a specific term for the study of organisms' classification based on their evolutionary relationships, and that's called phylogeny. And that is how scientists group the relationships among organisms based on the information we have about their evolutionary descent. So the evidence of evolution that we learned about in the last section is the type of information they would use in order to group these organisms. Two very important pieces of information that scientists use are the similarities in DNA and RNA. This is, as we learned in our evidence section, this is the most recent form of evidence for evolution, but it's also the strongest form. It is also the best information that scientists can use to, 1, determine classification, and 2, determine evolutionary relationships. Now, DNA isn't always available, so that's why this one can be kind of tricky, and that's also why scientists have to rely on things like fossil evidence and geographic distribution. But when DNA evidence is available, it is almost, pure, like, this is definitely what it is. This confirms all of the information that we thought we knew. This confirms it. This is how living things are related. In the strategy of determining this classification and these evolutionary relationships is collectively combined to be called evolutionary classification. Now, there's a little bit of some more information that we normally learn about classification when we have a typical school year, but we're kind of skipping some of the details to just focus on how this is related to evolution. But just to give you a quick little overview, organisms are grouped together based on different levels of relationship. So in this picture, you can see that we start with the species level. So that's the most specific level you can be. In this case, for the human relationships, the species is the species Homo sapien. Now, as we move up our levels of classification here, you start to include more and more organisms. The genus level are humans, and then our closest relatives, which are the Neanderthals, which currently are an extinct species. Then as we go up even further, we group in with family, which includes humans, the extinct Neanderthals, as well as primates and one specific form of primate, the chimpanzee. Then in the order section, we've got humans, Neanderthals, chimpanzees, and other primates or monkeys. Going up, including the class, is even more organisms. This is all mammals. So all the mammals that we find on the earth are included in this class. We get even broader with our phylum category. That is phylum Chordata for humans. We belong to the group of organisms that have a backbone. That is what that phylum is called. And then lastly, the largest classification is the kingdom, which is kingdom Animalia. So all of the animals on the earth would fall under this kingdom. Another way you can think of this system of classification is kind of like your address. So say that kingdom is, the country that you live in. So we live in the United States of America. The phylum could then be your region. So we live in New England. The class would be our specific state, Massachusetts. And then we could say our specific county, which is Essex, for the order. Our family would be our town of Methuen. Our genus could be the street that you live on in Methuen. We'll use the school, so we'll say Ranger Road. And then lastly, the species is the exact address. So 1 Ranger Road, which would be the exact address of Methuen High. So that's sort of how classification works. Let's look a little bit more into how we actually show this in terms of evolutionary classification. So the tool that scientists use for evolutionary classification is called a cladogram. This is a diagram that shows the evolutionary relationships among a group of organisms. So you can actually learn a lot from this picture. Not only can we determine in this cladogram which species are more closely related than others, for example, over here the dinosaurs and the birds are much further away than the shark, so they're a lot less closely related to the sharks. There's a lot more space in between them. And then you have the primates and the rodents, which are much more close on the cladogram, so they're much more closely related. So we can figure that out. However, we also have a little bit more information about the different traits that these animals have evolved. If you look down here, these red hash marks, we got hair, amniotic egg, 4 limbs, bony skeleton, vertebrae. These are all called derived characters, or there's certain traits that evolved in a species and then is now found in every species past that on the cladogram. So in our cladogram, the very first one, let me get rid of some of these circles so you can see. The very first one is a vertebrae, which means that every single organism on this list from that point on has a vertebrae or a backbone. Now the one after that is the bony skeleton, but because this one comes after the branching point of the shark, that means sharks do not have a bony skeleton, but everything after that does. So you can find out some interesting details, some things that organisms share in common when you actually look at a cladogram. And there's going to be a practice and an Edpuzzle on cladograms that you guys can look at tomorrow to get a little more practice on how to decipher these. Well, that's it for these short notes. Hope you guys have a great day.